Hello again, students, and welcome to another video tutorial. Today we're covering two chapters, but they're each connected to each other. It's not like it's two full chapters of information. It's really one concept that's spread out on two chapters, and we're just going to zoom in on the important things, the big concepts to take away from those two chapters, chapters 5 and 6 in the textbook. It's on fallacies. And I will start by sharing my screen and putting up the information in front of us so we can go through that together. All right. First, we're going to do is we're going to open up the notes that will be posted in Brightspace that cover this topic of fallacies. It's two chapters, 5 and 6. They're called the logical fallacies, okay? The reason why is because they create fallacies for our logic, for our thinking. Briefly put, a fallacy is an error in our reasoning that invalidates the argument. So whatever it is we're putting out there, our point of view on something, what we believe to be the case, we are creating an error in it that causes a problem for it to be a valid argument, okay? We're going to spend most of our time on just two of the categories of fallacies today. The book itself does not neatly put them into the categories, but we're going to talk about them from that perspective first. The four categories of fallacies are relevancy, presumption, which is also known as insufficient evidence, ambiguity, and formal. Now, formal fallacies actually are a concept that we'll be looking at again when we get to deductive reasoning. That's about how the structure of the argument itself creates a problem. So we're not really going to take much about those. Today, we're focusing mostly on relevancy and presumption, and we'll just quickly say a few words at the end about ambiguity, because we already spent a whole chapter talking about language, and ambiguity is about language. Okay, let's explain what they really are all about. Our fallacies of relevance. Well, first off, you can get a sense of the word that has something to do with everything that's relevant. Okay, so these fallacies are going to happen when the reasoning for the argument is irrelevant, meaning that it's off the subject. It's not related to what it is that's going on. Okay, like people say, hey, let's stick to the subject here, when they're talking about something. So this fallacy occurs when something goes wrong because people are bringing in things into the discussion or into the argument that really don't have anything to do with coming to your conclusion. They include the personal attack on people, attacking the motive, the reason for what is being said, looking at who's talking, right? Meaning that you shouldn't talk yourself, okay? Two wrongs make a right, an eye for an eye kind of mentality. Scare tactics, okay, intimidating people. Appealing to pity, feel sorry for me. Jumping on the bandwagon fallacy. The straw man, the red herring, and the last one, begging the question. We'll go through each one of them to understand exactly what they are and look at some examples. As a matter of fact, that's really is at the heart of what we need to do when it comes to understanding fallacies. A fallacy is a simple thing to figure out. It's a mistake, right? I create a fallacy when my argument has an error in it. That's not the problem. Understanding the concept is easy. The real challenge is spotting them, because many times they camouflage themselves into the conversation, into the evidence and the argument itself, so that we don't see them and notice them. We become blind to them, and therefore we present an argument or we accept an argument that really doesn't make any sense because we haven't spotted the fallacy. All right. What we want is to become what's called a fallacy buster. A fallacy buster is a good spotter of fallacies. They can spot them, identify them, and remove them quickly, okay, before they create more trouble for reasoning later on. The other one we're going to spend a lot of time with today are the fallacies of presumption or insufficient evidence. We come to a conclusion without the right amount of evidence, and we end up assuming. Remember when we talked about assumptions, they're not a good thing to do. So we end up assuming something is the case or presuming something is the case when it really isn't. These fallacies occur when the reasoning for an argument is built on unproven assumptions. You said something, but you really haven't proven that that's the case, or a lack of complete or sufficient evidence. You're jumping the gun, you're getting to your conclusion before you really have enough reasons to get there. They include the inappropriate appeal to authority, the appeal to ignorance or lack of knowledge, false alternatives, not really getting a fair shake at a good alternative thing to believe, loading questions, questionable cause, whether what you say is the reason for something actually is, a hasty generalization, jumping to a conclusion, the slippery slope sliding down into a quick conclusion, the weak analogy, not a good way to compare things, inconsistency, doesn't seem to be following the right processes and procedures, and composition and division, where we look at the individual parts are the same as the whole, or the whole is the same as the individual parts. Okay, and we'll get a better grasp on them when we look at the examples, but both of them are very similar to stereotyping, coming to a conclusion with evidence that really is saying because it happens to one, it happens to many. Okay, ambiguity is about language. They're also known as linguistic fallacies because they're about the use of language. We'll look at one in particular. We'll look at equivocation, where we manipulate many different meanings of a particular term, right? Amphibole, which is about multiple meanings of premises, and accents, changing the verbal emphasis in a statement. So these are about the way we use language. And we did already talk a lot about language, but we'll talk just briefly about equivocation and look at a really good example of it, hopefully one that you'll enjoy watching. And then finally, the formal fallacies, which I said really involves deductive reasoning. This is about the structure of the argument rather than the things in the argument. All right, it doesn't support the conclusion. In other words, our premises aren't actually set up to lead to a conclusion. It's not about the problem with the premises and the evidence. It's about the way that we put it together, that it doesn't really work that way. Now, a good example for understanding this is like in math. You know, if your numbers and formulas are not in the right place, then you're not going to get to the right conclusion. Like, for example, if you ever work in algebra with the quadratic equation, if you use the quadratic equation to solve other problems, but the quadratic equation itself is written incorrectly, then that would be like a good example of a formal fallacy. The actual equation is not set up to give us a good answer. Okay, well, let's get started and start looking at each of the fallacies of relevance and presumption so we can get a clear understanding of what they are and how to understand them. Okay, a fallacy of relevance is using irrelevant kinds of information or evidence to create our argument. The first one, right, is the personal attack. In Latin, we say ad hominem. Hominem is humans or person. Okay, so this is basing an argument on who a person is rather than the claims made. All right, so you're talking about who is saying something rather than the thing that they're saying, right? Indicating that just because someone is who they are, they wouldn't have something valid to say. Senator Williams introduced legislation to provide safety net health care for uninsured residents of the territory. Of course, as part of his job in the Senate, he actually has one of the most generous insurance coverages available. Anyone who has all their health care needs taken care of couldn't possibly understand the challenges faced by the uninsured. So his proposed legislation is probably biased. Now, just because somebody doesn't need health care doesn't mean that they don't understand what the challenges are of people who don't have health care, right? Rather than just brush off Senator Williams's legislation because of that reason, we should listen to the legislation, read through it, and see if it actually does have good points in it or not. If it does, then it doesn't matter whether he has insurance or not. If it doesn't, well, then it's no use doing anything with it because of its bad legislation, not because of the person who introduced it. Next is attacking the motive, which is a little similar to ad hominem, but we also add circumstantial, meaning the circumstances or the place or the association that somebody has who's giving the argument. So an argument is based on someone's motive for a claim rather than the claim itself. So you're saying that I'm going to come to this conclusion because of why somebody is saying something as opposed to what it is they're saying. So up here, we're talking about who it is who's saying it. Here, we're talking about why it is they're saying it. So here's our example. Maria suggested Mother Teresa as an example of a heroic woman of the 20th century. Of course, everyone knows that Maria is a dedicated Catholic, so it's no surprise that she would suggest Mother Teresa. Well, I mean, even people who are not Catholic would agree that Mother Teresa was an incredible person and very heroic for what she did in her lifetime. So the fact that Maria is Catholic doesn't really cut the mustard in this particular conclusion, right? So you can't just write off somebody's suggestion just because they're a member of a particular group. Another example, Sandra's boyfriend was just arrested for shoplifting from 10 different stores in town. Everyone knows that Sandra and her boyfriend were so close that they were inseparable. She must have learned all his techniques at shoplifting. She probably stole half the stuff in her closet. Okay, just because Sandra associates very closely with her boyfriend and he was a criminal doesn't mean she was a criminal too. There are lots of times when people close to us make bad decisions, and that doesn't mean we'll make the same bad decisions, okay? You can't say a family is a bunch of crooks just because one person in the family might have been arrested for some wrong activity. Okay, so guilt by association is not good reason. The next one, look who's talking, right? Or as we say it in Latin, tu quo, sorry. So this is an argument that is made because the people presenting the claim don't follow their own advice. Okay? Just because you don't do what you say doesn't necessarily mean the advice itself isn't good. My mom and dad said it's not a good idea to get married instead of going to college first. The two of them got married less than a year after high school and never went to college. So who are they to talk? Well, just because your mom and dad didn't actually follow that advice doesn't necessarily mean it isn't good advice, right? So we have to look at the advice on its own merit rather than worry about the fact that the people saying it don't follow it. Hey, Shamara, please slow down in the rain. The roads are all wet and slippery, and you're going twice the speed limit. You're going to have an accident. And then Shamara replies, don't lecture me about driving. You got 2 speeding tickets last month. Okay, well, just because the person got 2 speeding tickets doesn't mean that their advice about slowing down in the rain isn't good advice, right? Quite often, sometimes people don't follow their own advice, even though it's good. Like you might run into somebody who's a smoker and they might, have the cigarette in their mouth and say, or they're coughing, don't smoke, it's not good for your health. Even though they're a smoker and in bad health, doesn't mean their advice about not smoking isn't good advice. Okay? 2 wrongs make a right, an eye for an eye. Okay, justifying bad decisions by claiming that others did the same thing. I can do it because they did it. Okay, or what's good for the goose is good for the gander, so to speak. In our example, I can't believe that my boyfriend slept with one of my best friends. Uh-oh, that's terrible. He's going to pay for that. I'm sure he will. I'm going to go clubbing where his buddies lime and flirt with one of them. That'll teach him a lesson. I don't know. All right. You're not really going to even the score so much by cheating on him because he cheated on you. That really doesn't establish that the cheating itself was a bad thing to do in the first place. So if you're going to do it, what are you saying about the activity itself? Okay. That's more like a case of vengeance than anything else. Whenever we try and get even by doing the same thing that we're claiming is bad, we're probably on shallow ground for a good argument. That cashier forgot to charge me for the barbecue chicken under my cart when I cashed out. I ain't gonna go back and pay for it. They're always thieving me with their high prices, so this helps me even the score. Uh-huh. All right. So in other words, just because I think that store overcharges, when they forget to charge me for something and I don't pay for it, in other words, I'm justifying that action. And pretty much I'm doing the same thing I'm claiming they're doing. Okay. Scare tactics, force and corrosion. This is an argument based on intimidation and fear instead of good reasoning. Now, that's not a good way to create an argument, but unfortunately, often in today's world, it can be effective because we do fear being intimidated and violent behavior. Okay? So the gangster says to the business owner, "This cafe looks like a really nice place to sit and enjoy a drink with friends. It would be a terrible shame if something were to happen to change the nice environment you have here. Like if a brick were to break a window or a fire burn down the kitchen, or worse, an employee get injured in a fight. We can prevent that from happening by a simple monthly cash investment in the cafe safe." All right. So it's extortion. All right. But if these hoods look pretty tough, you might be afraid of them and give in to their reasoning and pay it. All right. Unfortunately, that's not good reasoning, but you might be a fear for your safety or your health, so you might do it. Lysandra, the company vice president, says to the warehouse employee, "Hi there, Franklin. You know it's time for the annual employee evaluations. I think you might benefit from discussing things with me tonight over drinks and dinner at my apartment. You can gain a lot by giving a little. Wink, wink." Uh-huh. So this kind of thing is also the same kind of fallacy where, you have this quid pro quo. That means you give and you get, and I get and you give kind of thinking in our mentality, in our argument. It's not very fair to Franklin that he has to go and fool around with his company vice president in order to get a good evaluation, right? But of course, Franklin may decide to do it anyway because he wants a good evaluation. So while it may sometimes be effective, it's definitely not good reasoning. And in this case, with Franklin and Lysandra, it is also against the law. Okay, you could be in a lot of trouble. Lysandra could be in a lot of trouble if Franklin decides to blow the whistle on her. The appeal to pity, which I sometimes call the student fallacy. Okay, why do I do that? This is an argument based on making someone give into your claim because you want them to feel sorry for you instead of the fact that it makes sense. Okay. So a student sends me an email and it says, "Professor Capriola, please hear me out before you calculate my course grade. Uh-oh. My brother is in the hospital for food poisoning. My boyfriend cheated on me with my sister. My car needs new brakes, and I just tested positive for COVID. I deserve an A for all my pain." Oh my goodness. She deserves my sympathy for a tough life, but I don't know if she deserves an A for her pain. That's not what gets an A in a class. Your pain and your suffering. What gets an A are good grades, right? So it's bad reasoning, but you want somebody to feel sorry for you, okay? The driver says to the police officer, "Please, officer, don't arrest me for drunk driving. It would be my second time this year. If I get arrested, my insurance will be canceled and my parents will take away my car. They'll probably even make me go to rehab. My social life will be ruined and I'll never get to see my friends." Well, certainly if it's your second time driving drunk, maybe you shouldn't be driving that car, right? Feeling sorry for you is not a good reason to let you off the hook, right? Especially since it looked like you have a serious problem with drinking and driving. Then we have the bandwagon argument, the appeal to popularity, jumping on the bandwagon. All right. This is an argument that prey on a desire to feel accepted by a group and fit in rather than the good reasoning behind it. It also includes things like join the gang or appeal to patriotism, that flag waving when we get emotionally involved in being patriotic to support a cause. An example would be support island agriculture and shop at the VI farmers market. Buy local. Well, There's nothing wrong with supporting local. We should buy local, but we should buy local because it's a good thing to do, not simply because it is local. All right. So good reasoning means that you have more than just one little claim about being local in order to get something. Suppose you're not really that well off, and all the produce at the VI farmers market costs a little more than it does at Plaza. All right. Well, it might be a little asking you to sacrifice a little too much to spend $1 more a pound and buy local than to save $1 a pound and go to Plaza. Right? Depends on the situation and the individual. You want to have a better reason to buy it. Might say it's worth the extra $1 a pound because it's fresher, and you're also helping other people. Right? Chrysler cars are made in the USA. Be a patriot and buy American products. Once again, all right, just because it's made in America doesn't necessarily mean it's the right car for us to buy. There's a lot of reasons why a car would be correct for us to buy: price, performance, um, uh, the fact that it's a car that we can depend on. Right? There are probably better ways to make a decision about the car than just where it might be made. Of course, today, with the threat of maybe having tariffs on foreign products, we might end up finding that American cars are a little cheaper, but that's to be seen. Then we have the straw man argument. This is an argument that distorts the opposing view by making it appear absurd or ridiculous. All right. Like as if a man made out of straw is not a realistic person. All right. You make it look so unrealistic. But in reality, all you're really doing is creating an opposition that really is not very accurate. Okay. So listen, my friend, you don't want to pay attention to those people who are trying to abolish the death penalty. They're all crazy liberals who just want murderers to go free. Well, that's completely ridiculous. People who are against the death penalty don't want murderers to go free at all. They want them to be in jail. They just don't want them executed. All right. So we create this image of the opposition that is ridiculous so that nobody would take it serious. The red herring is one of my favorite ones. What is a red herring? Well, a red herring is actually a fish, an actual fish that smells really, really strong. Okay, it's got a real smelly fish scent to it. As a matter of fact, as soon as you touch it, the smell comes off on the skin of your hands, and it's very hard to get it off. You have to use lemon oil or tomato juice to get rid of the smell. So the story behind the red herring is this. Um, these prisoners escaped from jail, and these dogs were being used to track their scent to recapture them. Well, the prisoners got a hold of these red herring fish and they put it on the trail behind them as they walked. So when the dogs caught up to the fish, the red herrings, the fish smell was so strong they lost the scent of the people that they were following. So this is an argument that uses irrelevant information to throw others off track and elude any attempt to address the original issue. Okay. So the student says, the price of textbooks has gone way out of control. Why should I have to pay over $300 for a new edition of a book that's almost identical to the previous edition? Now, the bookstore salesperson says, it's vital to always have the best available versions of things we need. You really can't stop updating technology and innovation. Take your cell phone, for example. You wouldn't want to have to make do with using a phone from 15 years ago that doesn't even have smartphone capability. It's the same with everything. Updates are essential for good living and learning. Well, I don't know about that. Okay. You start bringing in this idea of the cell phone. That has nothing to do with textbooks, especially when a lot of textbooks actually do cost more than they should. And a new edition is almost identical to the previous one. So I don't know if we end up having a bookstore person giving us a fair comparison here. Okay. Or let's say I have class at 5:30 with my students, and I have spent a little time after class in my office, so I don't actually go home until about 7:30. By the time I get home, my wife already has eaten dinner, but she has saved me a plate. So I go to sit down and eat, but I don't want to get anything on my UVI shirt to stain it. So I take off my UVI shirt and put it in the laundry. Well, while I'm sitting there eating, my wife decides to do a load of laundry because adding my shirt made her seem like the load is getting a little big. So she puts everything in the washing machine. And then she comes over to me at the table while I'm eating and she says, "What's this lipstick doing on your UVI shirt?" And I look up at her and I say, "Oh, mi amor, this arroz con pollo that you made to eat is so delicious. I've never tasted anything so good for dinner." What am I trying to do? The same thing as the bookstore person, right? I'm trying to get her off the topic, off the track, so I don't have to address the lipstick on my shirt. Okay. Of course, that's just an example. I never actually came home with lipstick on my UVI shirt. All right. The next one, begging the question. This is an argument that uses circular reasoning by asserting the premise itself as the conclusion. So you really haven't gone from evidence to conclusion. You've just restated the evidence. Okay. So belief in God is universal because everyone believes in God. Well, that's kind of what universal means. Universal means everyone. So saying everyone believes in God is not really a good conclusion to the argument because you actually just said the same thing in your evidence. All right, those are our fallacies of relevance. Now let's take a look at the fallacies of insufficient evidence, all right, where we are presuming something to be true even though we haven't established it yet. Okay, so we haven't proven the case adequately to draw a satisfactory conclusion. First off, we have the inappropriate appeal to authority. All right, now there's nothing wrong with an appropriate appeal to authority. So, for example, I'm trying to improve my basketball skills and I go to the basketball coach to talk about it. I'm appealing to his authority as the coach of the team to help me improve my skills. That's appropriate. The inappropriate appeal to authority is an argument based on the word or association of an authority figure, well known or famous individual, like a celebrity perhaps, but who is not authentically reliable enough to be considered an authority on the matter itself. When we get to talking about advertising, we're going to see that this is found in celebrity endorsements quite often. So, I saw Nicki Minaj using the new iPhone while she was in the stands at the Miami Dolphins game. She looks so cool with it. It's got to be the best phone out there if she owns one. Well, just because Nicki Minaj owns the phone doesn't make her an authority on what the best cell phone is. I might want to have what Nicki has, but that doesn't mean it is the best phone. Petra says to Miguel, "I see you have the 11 o'clock Psych 120 course on your registration form." And Miguel says, "Yeah, I met a business major at the cafeteria who's been here 3 years. She told me I should take Dr. Demento's psychology class. She said he was the best psychology teacher at UVI. I don't know about that. Right? Why would I appeal to a business major to find out who the best psychology teacher is at UVI? How many psychology classes would a business major actually take? Sometimes probably none because they're not even required to have a single psychology class for their degree, right? So I might be better off asking someone else who knows all of the psychology teachers at UVI a little better. Plus, anyone named Dr. Demento might not necessarily be the best person to have a psychology class with. Right. The appeal to ignorance. That's where an argument is based on the assumption that since a claim hasn't been proven false, it must be true. Well, I don't know about the thinking of just because something hasn't been proven not to be the case, that it must be the case. That doesn't really sound like a very good reason to base an argument on. As in the example, that house is definitely haunted. You can't prove it isn't haunted, so it must be true. Well, how do you prove a house isn't haunted? I don't know how easy that might be to do. So just because you don't have evidence to show that something isn't the case doesn't mean that it is the case. The false alternative. This is an argument based on either or choices that are not really reasonable or logical alternatives. Okay? Life must be lived with gusto. Either you get up and take advantage of every opportunity that comes your way, or you curl up at home and become a couch potato and die. Well, there might be something in the middle of that. You don't have to go crazy and do everything that's presented to you, as opposed to simply just living on your couch and doing nothing. There might be a little something in the middle of that. Okay. Or like the famous phrase from the patriot Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death. I don't know. Maybe I could have a little less liberty and still be alive. I don't know if I need to die because I don't have all the liberties I want. Okay. There might be some in between compromise. The loaded question. That's an argument that contains an unfair question as part of its reasoning. So, for example, the detective says to Mr. Santana, did you murder your business partner before or after you swindled him out of the company funds? Well, how do you answer that without admitting that you murdered him? Okay. If I say before, then I'm still saying I did murder him. If I say after, I'm still saying I did murder him. So that's not a very fair choice to make. How about this? The grandmother says to the teenager, do you always eat junk food for breakfast? No matter how you answer that, you're in trouble. If you say no, and you're saying no, not always, just right now. If you say yes, then of course you're saying, yeah, I always do. The questionable cause. This is where an argument is based on an unproven assertion that one thing is the cause of something else. It usually involves a time sequence or correlation, meaning that what happened earlier caused what happened later. Right? Now, sometimes, if we're trying to figure out what caused something, we can look at what happened first, but that's not always going to be the case. I am not surprised to read that there was a series of burglaries that occurred on the island this past weekend. It says there was also a full moon. Well, okay, what about the times that there is a full moon and there isn't a rise in burglaries? Okay, so people use a full moon to explain a lot of things, but there really isn't any good, valid reason to believe that full moons have any effect on people's actions. Ariel's phone says that she received a text message seconds before she ran off the road and got stuck in the mud. Clearly, it was the text that caused the accident. Well, not necessarily so. Did Ariel even bother to look at the text? Did she have her phone in her hand? Maybe the phone was in her purse when the text came in and she didn't even bother doing anything with it. It may have caused the accident, perhaps, if we could find out more information. Like she had the phone in her hand and she was looking at the text when she ran off the road. But just because the text message came in doesn't necessarily mean it caused the accident. Then we have the hasty generalization. Right? This is an argument that makes an unproven assumption that almost everything of a certain kind has the same characteristics. It is similar to stereotyping. Okay? Yesterday, I had Mexican food and ended up sick all through the night. That stuff is no good. It's best to stick with callaloo. Well, there's nothing wrong with eating callaloo, that's for sure. But there may also be nothing wrong with the Mexican food. There might have been another reason why I was sick all night. Maybe I caught a bug. Maybe the drink I had contaminations in it. Who knows? All right. That's not really enough evidence to end up getting rid of Mexican food for good. Okay. The slippery slope. This is an argument that makes an unsupported claim that one simple act will lead to extreme results. All right. Why do we call it the slippery slope? Well, if you ever go to a playground and you see the slide there, right? You know, if you slide down, you go from the top all the way to the bottom. But if you ever go on the slide after it rains while it's wet, you know that that will quickly get you zoom right from one point to another. So this is what we mean by the slippery slope. Because it's slippery, we go very quickly from one extreme to the other. I can't believe that the legislature approved the recreational use of marijuana and it was signed into law. That's going to lead to dangerous consequences. Today, people will be lighting up joints, and tomorrow, everyone will be shooting up heroin and doing crack. Well, I don't know about that. That's not really a logical sounding argument. there has been absolutely no evidence to support the case that simply because someone uses marijuana recreationally, that they're going to all of a sudden tomorrow end up shooting heroin doing crack. It could be possible that some people who use heroin or crack may have actually started with marijuana, but there are a multitude more people who have used marijuana and never did go to anything higher. Okay, so that kind of reasoning is not very effective. I heard that they authorized a search of high school student locker when two teachers saw him enter the school with something that looked like a gun under his shirt. It turned out to be just a broken conch shell. The authorities have no respect for privacy. Next thing you know, students will have to be strip searched before going to a class. Well, once again, that's jumping to a quick extreme. I think the teachers had a valid reason to be concerned if it looked like a gun. All right, we know that there are terrible consequences sometimes when people bring guns into school. All right, there have been lots and lots of terrible tragedies caused by that. So for the student to have his locker searched after the teachers thought they saw him with a gun is not unreasonable. And certainly it will not lead to students being strip searched before going to class. Okay, there's a really extreme connection being made there. The weak analogy, okay, this is an argument that bases claim on a comparison or analogy of things that really aren't meant to be compared. Kind of like when we say comparing apples to oranges. The Senior Citizen Center plays light classical jazz music at a luncheon buffet. Heavy metal is also music, so they should play that at the next senior lunch gathering. Well, that's not really good reason. Just because something is also music doesn't mean it's the same kind of music that people might appreciate and enjoy in a particular group. Inconsistency. This is an argument based on claims that contradict and are inconsistent with each other. All right, you might see this sometimes even in advertising. Get a second set of this incredible item absolutely free. Just pay a separate processing fee of $10. Okay, well, okay, absolutely free shouldn't mean that you have to pay a fee for something. All right, okay. So I'm sure that whatever this incredible item is, that the cost of giving you a free second one uh, is covered with the processing fee of $10. Right. Then we have composition and the similar one division. A stereotypical argument based on claims that what is proven true of an individual must be part of the whole. Okay? Many of the players on the team are the highest scoring in the league, so the team must be great. Well, that doesn't always happen. Okay. Sometimes there are a couple of really good players on the team, or a lot of good players on the team, but the team just can't get it together and play as a team. And they end up losing a lot of games because they don't do well together on the field or on the court. Right. So it doesn't really matter so much for the individual players. It matters how the team plays together, whether or not they'll win. Like in baseball, you could have a couple of players that get hits a lot, but if once you're on base, you don't really know how to eventually score and get to home plate, then you might not win many games. With division, we're saying a stereotypical argument is based on claims that what is true of the whole must be true of the individual parts. So it's kind of like the same thing as composition, just going from whole to parts instead of parts to whole. I think the firm should hire Rosanna for the position. She graduated from Notre Dame Law School, one of the best law schools, so she must have been a great student. Well, it doesn't mean that everybody who graduates from a great school was a good student. Sometimes people just barely pass to graduate. So rather than looking at where Rosanna graduated from, you should probably look at her transcript or her grade point average to be more sure. Okay. All right. Now we get finally to what we were talking about earlier, the fallacies of ambiguity. We're going to look at one linguistic fallacy, and that is equivocation. Okay, this is an argument when an important word is used to represent more than one meaning of the same claim. Right? I don't understand why you're living such an unproductive life. You have a marketable skill. Go down to the corner bakery and see if you can get hired as a loafer. instead of sitting around the house all day long? Well, the word loafer refers to someone who bakes loaves of bread, but also refers to someone who sits around the house all day long. All right, so what meaning are you using? Let's look at a little more humorous example of equivocation as the fellows talk about baseball.
Right. What are you doing?
I love baseball.
Well, we all love baseball.
When we get to St. Louis, will you tell me the guys' names on the team so when I go to see them in that St. Louis ballpark, I'll be able to know those fellas?
Well, now, is it all right, folks? All right.
Excuse me, I want to find out the fellas' names.
As long as it's okay with
I'm
the
crazy
audience.
about baseball.
Will you stand still? Pick up your hat. Go pick up your hat.
Okay.
Now, look. Then you'll go and peddle your popcorn and don't interrupt the act anymore?
Yes, sir.
All right. But you know, strange it may seem, they give ball players nowadays very peculiar names.
Funny names?
Nicknames, pet names.
Not as funny as my name, Sebastian Dinwiddie.
Oh, yes.
Funnier than that?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Now, on the St. Louis team, we have who's on first, what's on second. I don't know's on third.
That's what I want to find out. I want you to tell me the names of the fellas on the St. Louis team.
I'm telling you, who's on first, what's on second, I don't know's on third.
Do you know the fellas' names?
Yes.
Well, then who's playing first?
Yes.
I mean the fellow's name on first base.
Who?
The fellow playing first base for St. Louis.
Who?
The guy on first base.
Who is on first?
Well, what are you asking me for?
I'm not asking you, I'm telling you, who is on first?
I'm asking you who's on first.
That's the man's name.
That's whose name?
Yes.
Well, go ahead and tell me.
Who?
The guy on first.
Who?
The first baseman.
Who is on first?
Have you got a first baseman on first?
Certainly.
Then who's playing first?
Absolutely.
When you pay off the first baseman every month, who gets the money?
Every dollar of it. Why not? The man's entitled to it.
Who is?
Yes.
So who gets it?
Why shouldn't he? Sometimes his wife comes down and collects it.
Whose wife?
Yes. After all, the man earns it.
Who does?
Absolutely.
Well, all I'm trying to find out is what's the guy's name on first base?
Oh, no. What is on second base?
I'm not asking you who's on second.
Who's on first?
That's what I'm trying to find out.
Well, don't change the players.
I'm not changing nobody.
Take it easy.
What's the guy's name on first base?
What's the guy's name on second base?
I'm not asking you who's on second.
Who's on first?
I don't know.
He's on third. We're not talking about him.
How did I get on third base?
You mentioned his name.
If I mention a third baseman's name, who did I say's playing third?
No, who's playing first?
Stay off of first, will you?
Well, what do you want me to do?
Now, what's the guy's name on third base?
What's on second?
I'm not asking you who's on second.
Who's on first?
I don't know.
He's on third.
There I go, back on third again.
Well, I can't change their names.
Will you please stay on third base, Mr. Broadhurst?
Now, what is it you want to know?
What is the fella's name on third base?
What is the fella's name on second base?
I'm not asking you who's on second.
Who's on first?
I don't know. Third base. You got an outfield?
Oh, sure.
St. Louis has got a good outfield?
Absolutely.
The left fielder's name?
Why?
I don't know. I just thought I'd ask you.
Well, I just thought I'd tell you.
Then tell me who's playing left field.
Who is playing first?
Stay out of the infield.
Don't mention their names out here.
I want to know what's the fella's name in left field.
What is on second?
I'm not asking you who's on second.
Who is on first?
I don't know. Third base.
Oh, take it easy. Take it easy, man.
And the left fielder's name?
Why?
Because.
Oh, he's center field. He's center. Will you pick up your hat, please? Pick up your hat and stop this. Oh, look,
Mr.
please.
Broadhurst.
Yes.
Wait a minute. You got a pitcher on a team?
Wouldn't this be a fine team without a pitcher?
I don't know. Tell me the pitcher's name.
Tomorrow.
You don't want to tell me the day?
I'm telling you, man.
Then go ahead.
Tomorrow.
What time?
What time what?
What time tomorrow you're going to tell me who's pitching?
Now listen. Who is not pitching? Who is on?
I'll break your arm. You say who's on first?
Why come up here and ask?
I want to know what's the pitcher's name.
What's on second?
I don't know.
Third
Third
base.
base. You got a catcher?
Yes.
The catcher's name?
Today.
Today. And tomorrow's pitching.
Now you've got it.
That's all. St. Louis has got a couple of days on the team.
Well, I can't help that. All right. What do you want me to do?
Got a catcher?
Yes.
I'm a good catcher, too, you know.
I know that.
I would like to play for the St. Louis team.
Well, I might arrange that.
I would like to catch. Now, I'm being a good catcher. Tomorrow's pitching on the team, and I'm catching.
Yes.
Tomorrow throws the ball, and the guy up bunts the ball.
Yes.
Now, when he bunts the ball, me being a good catcher, I want to throw the guy out at first base, so I pick up the ball and throw it to who?
Now, that's the first thing you've said right.
I don't even know what I'm talking about.
Well, that's all you have to do.
Is to throw it to first base.
Yeah.
Now, who's got it?
Naturally.
Who hasn't?
Naturally.
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 Okay.
Now, you've got it.
I pick up the ball and I throw it to naturally.
I know you don't. You throw the ball to first base.
Then who gets it?
Naturally.
Okay.
All right.
I throw the ball to naturally.
You don't. You throw it to who?
Naturally.
Well, that's it. Say it that way.
That's what I said.
You did not.
I said I throw the ball to naturally.
You don't. You throw it to who?
Naturally.
Yes.
So I throw the ball to first base and naturally gets it.
No, you throw the ball to first base.
Then who gets it?
Naturally.
That's what I'm saying.
You're not saying that.
Excuse me, folks.
All right, I'm sorry, friend.
I throw the ball to
You
naturally.
throw it to who?
Naturally.
Naturally. Well, say it that way.
That's what I'm
Don't
saying.
get excited now. Don't get
I
excited.
throw the ball to first base
Then
and
who gets it?
he better get it.
All right, now don't get excited. Take it easy.
Now I throw the ball to first base. Whoever it is drops the ball, so the guy runs to 2nd. Who picks up the ball and throws it to what? What throws it to I don't know. I don't know. Throws it back to tomorrow. A triple play.
Yeah, it could be.
Another guy gets up and it's a long fly ball to because. Why? I don't know. He's on third, and I don't care.
What was that?
I said, I don't care.
Oh, that's a shortstop.
Okay, looks like poor Lou Costello will never figure out who is on first. But I thank you for being a part of today's video tutorial, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye.